We go into verses 15 and 16, and here we have the promise stated: a son will come through Sarai, who's just had a name change from Sarai to Sarah. It says, "Then God said to Abram, as your Sarai your wife, you shall not call her, but Sarah shall be her name, and I will bless her and also give you a son by her. Then I will bless her, and she shall be the mother of a nation. Kings of people shall come from her." Okay, here we go. "As for Sarah your wife, you shall not call her Sarai anymore, but Sarah shall be her name." There's only a subtle difference between Sarai and Sarah, but it's an important difference. Sarah indicates a higher standing than Sarah. Sarai signifies a lady or my princess, which confines her dominion to one family. But Sarah signifies either a lady or a princess simply, well, it says more than that. It's without restriction, the princess of a multitude. "And I will bless her and also give her a son by her." Give you a son by her. By emphasizing the word her, God made it plain that this son would not come from another surrogate mother like Hagar and Ishmael. Sarah herself would give birth, even though it was past her time. Now, you've got to get the handle on this. Sarah's about 90, and God's making this promise. Verses 17 and 18 go on. Abraham's response to this promise. It's an interesting response. "Then Abraham fell on his face and laughed and said in his heart, 'Shall a child be born to a man who's 100 years old? Shall Sarah, who was 90 years old, bear a child?' And Abram said to God, 'Oh, that Ishmael might live before you.'" And Abraham fell on his face and laughed. Now, I'm not game enough to do that in front of God. Should Abram's laugh be seen as a cynical doubt or a rejoicing in something that he knew was impossible by outward appearance, but that God could perform it? Think about this. What is this reaction? How do we react in similar situations? Shall a child be born to a man who's 100 years old? Abraham knew both he and Sarah were well past the time that normal people had children. Yet Abraham believed. Absolutely. You see, in the presence of him who believed, God who gives life to the dead and calls those things which do not exist as they did, who, contrary to hope, in hope believed, so that he became the father of many nations, according to what is spoken. And Paul said that. "So shall your descendants be." It's not being weak in faith, and he did not consider his own body, which was 100 years old, and the deadness of Sarah's womb. God did something. God did something, and Abram responds to it. He's given strength and faith. Absolutely. Notice it says too that, "Oh, that Ishmael might live before you." At the same time, Abraham didn't understand God's promise completely. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer for us to get the whole picture. He perhaps thought God simply meant Ishmael would become Sarah's spiritual son. Abraham, like us all, found it hard to trust God for more than he could conceive in his brain. Yep, absolutely. But God repeats the process and the promise. Did this this is in 19 through to 22. And God said, "No, Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son, and you shall call his name Isaac. I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his descendants after him. As for Ishmael, I've heard you. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful, and he will multiply him exceedingly. He shall beget 12 princes, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant I will establish with Isaac, whom Sarah shall bear to you at this time next year." Then he finished talking with him, and God went up from Abram. And there's some huge stuff here. Sarah, your wife, shall bear you a son. You shall call his name Isaac. Now, the name Isaac means laughter, because he would bring joy to his parents, but also to remind Abram that he laughed at God's promise. He laughed about it. He's going to be reminded every time he hears the name. As for Ishmael, he's heard about it. God's going to bless him. Ishmael will be blessed. God would answer Abram's prayer for blessing on him. Absolutely. Nevertheless, the covenant and its promise would only pass through the son to come, the son of promise for Abraham and Sarah's son. Think about that stuff this week.